He came in 5 minutes before closing, every night, like clockwork. You could set your watch by him. Every single night, at 9:55 p.m., the little bell above our diner door would jingle, and there he'd be, an older gentleman, probably in his late 70s, always wearing the same tweed coat, a bit frayed at the cuffs, and a soft, worn-out flat cap. He'd slide into the same booth, the one in the far corner by the window, and he'd order the exact same thing, a black coffee and a slice of apple pie. No Badiashans. No special requests. Just black coffee, apple pie. For the first few months, none of us paid him much mind. He was just part of the closing routine. Mopped the floors, wiped the counters, served the old man his pie. He never spoke much. Just a quiet thank you when I'd set his order down, and he'd leave the exact change on the table, plus $1 tip. Every single time. He'd eat slowly, staring out the window at the empty street, lost in his own world. By 10:15, he'd be gone, melting back into the night as quietly as he arrived. But curiosity is a funny thing. It starts as a little seed, and then it just grows. My coworker, Sarah, thought he was a retired spy, practicing some old routine. My boss, a gruff but good-hearted guy named Sal, figured he was just a lonely widower with nowhere else to go. I wasn't sure what to think. There was a sadness in his eyes, a deep, settled kind of melancholy that you don't see every day. It wasn't just loneliness. It was something more. One night, a particularly nasty storm was brewing. The wind was howling, and the rain was coming down in sheets. It was 9:50 p.m., and Sal told me and Sarah we could close up early and head home before it got worse. We were just about to lock the door when, at 9:55 on the dot, the bell jingled, and there he was, soaked to the bone, his tweed coat dripping a puddle onto the floor. But he smiled, a faint, tired smile, and shuffled over to his usual booth. Sal sighed, but he just nodded at me. I went over and took his order, though I already knew what it was. This time, I couldn't help myself. "Rough night out there, huh?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He just looked up at me, those sad, blue eyes seeming to look right through me. "The weather is of no consequence," he said, his voice raspy, like an old vinyl record. "Some things are more important." And that was it. He went back to staring out the window. That cryptic comment was all Sarah and I could talk about for the next week. More important than staying dry? What could it be? Sarah wondered aloud while polishing silverware. We came up with all sorts of wild theories. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe the diner held a special memory. The mystery of the old man in the corner booth became the central drama of our otherwise predictable lives. So, I decided to do something. The next week, on a clear, calm Tuesday night, I baked a pie myself. It wasn't on the menu. It was a cherry pie, my grandma's recipe. When he came in at 9:55, I waited until he was settled, and then I walked over. "Evening," I said. "I know you always get the apple, but the chef fibbed a little. The chef made something special tonight. Cherry. On the house, would you be willing to try it?" He looked at the pie, then at me. For a moment, I thought he was going to refuse. He was a man of routine, after all. But then, a flicker of something new appeared in his eyes. A tiny spark of curiosity, maybe. "E gabi a slow," deliberate nod. "Cherry," he whispered, almost to himself. "It's been a long time." I placed the pie and his coffee on the table and walked away, my heart pounding a little faster than usual. I watched him from behind the counter. "E took a bite," and then another, and then he stopped, put his fork down, and just sat there. When I went to clear his table later, the pie was half-eaten. But tucked under the plate was his usual $1 tip, plus a folded napkin. Primera picked it up. On it, in shaky handwriting, were 3 words. Her favorite. Thank you. That was the key. Her. His wife. Of course. The next night, I felt brave. When they come in, I brought his coffee and said, "I hope you enjoyed the cherry pie last night." He looked up, and for the first time, he really looked at me. "I did," he said. "It was my Eleanor's favorite." She could eat a whole cherry pie by herself if you let her. He smiled, a genuine, warm smile that transformed his entire face. It was like the sun breaking through clouds. His name was Arthur, and his wife, Eleanor, had passed away 3 years ago. This diner, he told me over the next few weeks, was where they had their first date. He was a nervous young soldier, and she was a waitress with a fiery spirit and a love for cherry pie. He told me to order apple pie because cherry was asterisk. Their asterisk thing. Eating it alone felt like a betrayal. But coming here, at the same time, ordering something was his way of keeping her close, of keeping the memory alive. He'd sit in the same booth they shared on that first date, and he'd look out the window and remember her laughing. The black coffee and apple pie was his ritual, his quiet tribute. He wasn't a spy or just some lonely old man. He was a man deeply in love, keeping a promise to a memory. After that, things changed. I'd save him a slice of whatever pie we had that was special. Sometimes blueberry, sometimes pumpkin. He'd try them all. We'd talk for a few minutes each night. He told me about his time in the army, about the house he built with his own 2 hands, about Eleanor's terrible singing voice and her incredible garden. He'd show me old, faded photos he kept in his wallet of a beautiful young woman with sparkling eyes. Our little diner, in those last 15 minutes of the night, became a sanctuary of memory. Sal and Sarah would listen in, too, smiling softly. He wasn't just the last customer anymore. Was Artur. He was our friend. One night, at 9:55, the bell didn't jingle. 10 o'clock came and went. The corner booth stayed empty. Sal told me not to worry, that maybe he just wasn't feeling well. But the next night, he didn't come either. Nor the night after that. A week went by, and the silence in that corner of the diner felt louder than any noise. We all knew, without saying it, that Arthur wasn't coming back. A few weeks later, a young woman I'd never seen before came in. She walked right up to the counter. "Are you the one who gave my grandfather the cherry pie?" she asked. I just nodded, my throat suddenly tight. She smiled, a sad but beautiful smile. "I'm his granddaughter. He passed away peacefully in his sleep. He told me about you, about this place. He asked me to give you this." She handed me a small wooden box. Inside was an old, tarnished silver locket. Primera, opened, Italiano. On one side was a tiny photo of a young Arthur, and on the other, a young Eleanor. Tucked behind her photo was a tiny, folded piece of paper. I carefully unfolded it. It was a piece of a napkin, and on it, in familiar, shaky handwriting, it said, "Thank you for bringing her back to me. One last time." We still keep that corner booth reserved. We call it Arthur's booth. And sometimes, when we're closing up and the night is quiet, I swear I can almost hear the faint jingle of the bell at 9:55, and the sound of a man, finally at peace, sharing a slice of cherry pie with the love of his life. Thank you for listening to our story tonight. If you have a memory that you cherish, hold it closely. And if you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing for more stories from the heart. See you next time.